Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 99 of Buds and Blue Jays, your place for all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm your host, Jesse Burrell, and I am joined, as always, by my usual co-host, Riley McConnell. And Riley, the Blue Jays just went into Philadelphia after the sweep at PNC. We were feeling good leaving Pittsburgh, but these two games just happened in Philly. Man, how are you feeling about that?
Well, it's never good to lose a two-game set, go 0-2, heading into Philadelphia. It's a series we thought that we would split. We knew that, we knew that Philly had their two aces. They went with Wheeler, they went with Nola in game one. So you're in tough against good quality right-handed throwers like them. So we knew we had our work cut out for us. And hey, that's baseball, I guess. I said it last time. I knew we were going to have a really low scoring game. That was today, game two. Extra innings doesn't get closer than that. Game one. Totally. Hey, that caught me off guard, man. That caught me way off guard. I did not think that we would get that kind of performance from our starter. I thought it would look a lot better than that. But hey, it's a two-game series in interleague play. I know we play everybody. The Phillies are a team that we're not going to see a whole lot from here on, but you take it with a grain of salt, Jesse. We had our two best throwers, potentially, our two aces on the hill. We're saddled with two losses. We pick up and we go from there.
That's right. Today on the show, we are going to dive deeper into the performances that the Blue Jays put together this series, including what we saw from Alek Manoah and some dominant performances from Kevin Gausman. We have to talk about Bo Bichette's throwing error he had in that last game there, plus so much more on this episode. But first, guys, if you're watching us for the first time, what took you guys so long? Good to have you here. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter as well, where Riley and I will talk to you on there. Always down to talk Blue Jays baseball on the social media platforms. And if you're listening to us in podcast land, please leave us a 5-star review, download, share with a friend, leave a positive review, all that fun stuff. It really is the best way to help the show grow. Riley, before we get into diving into more player storylines and all this stuff, I am going to give the quick little game recaps here for those of you who might have missed and or have not been watching. Game one of the series, the Blue Jays lost this game 8-4. The Blue Jays were scoreless through the first two innings. They did take a run in the top of the third, thanks to a Bo Bichette RBI double that smacked off the wall. Alek Manoah then gave up two more in the bottom of the fourth and was pulled after giving up another one in the fifth. The Jays were able to battle, were able to get to 5-4, but then Philly erupted off the Blue Jays bullpen late to take this game 8-4. Game two of this series, this is the game that just happened this afternoon. As you mentioned, Riley, it was a 2-1 extra innings win for the Philadelphia Phillies. Kevin Gausman was dominant in this one. 6 innings, 3 hits allowed, no earned runs, no walks, 9 strikeouts. But unfortunately, the Blue Jays bullpen couldn't hang on as Jordan Romano blew it in the 9th. And after not being able to score in the top of the 10th with the zombie runner, the Phillies were, thanks to a throwing error by Bo Bichette, which Vladdy made close to the plate, but ultimately close does not count. And the Blue Jays lose this game 2-1. So after this series, the Blue Jays record stands at 21-16, 7.5 games back of the Rays for first place. We are now in 4th in the AL East, and we're only half a game ahead of the Yankees, who are sitting at 21-17 for dead last in the AL East right now. So Riley, lots of talking points. So much stuff happened in this little 2-game series against the Phillies. Where do you want to go first, man?
I think the only player to talk about to start things off in this series was the guy that surrounded the game sheet on every facet of offense and defense of this series, and that's Bo Bichette. He had an absolutely fantastic game one, 2 hits, 2 runs driven in on 2 very hard hit baseballs. Still one of the best hitters in baseball, and he's hitting it to all fields. He absolutely skied one over Brandon Marsh's head for extra bases. Like I said, he drove in 2 runs. Yes, that didn't help us in the long run. We lost by 4 runs. A lot of that came down to pitching, and Alek Manoah will definitely get more into that as the episode progresses. But, Bo Bichette did things right in game one. In game two, 1 for 4. That's fine at the plate for what he's been doing. But listen, when the game's on the line. So, Jess, you've already kind of, we didn't bury the lead with this. This is really kind of the deciding moment in this game where Tim Mason made a phenomenal play on the mound, spun, heads up play, fired the ball to second base with a Bo Bichette carrying momentum, across the bag. And that's a play he has to make. Yes, Vladdy, a very athletic first baseman, a very good first baseman, a Gold Glover at that. And Bo Bichette just couldn't lock it down, just couldn't pinpoint his throw. And needless to say, we took the L 2-1 in that one. It's a tough loss. I don't know where we find the happy medium in this. I mean, Bo Bichette is a phenomenal offensive player in this league. I mean, I'm just gonna say it one more time. I think he's gonna have the most hits in the American League. I think he might have the most hits in baseball by the time this season's done, and that would be 3 years in a row for the American League and Bo Bichette. He's that good at the plate, but he plays a premium position in shortstop. I mean, you have to be a serviceable defender if you're going to play short, especially when the game's on the line like that. Like, that's a tough one. We could have took that into, let's say the 11th inning, and then anything goes after that. It's a play that Bo Bichette has to make, and he simply, he didn't sail the throw. It went to Vladdy's right side, and the ball's pretty well, like, the ball game's over as soon as Vladdy does not catch the ball. That ball game is absolutely over. And I mean, a lot's got to be addressed with the defensive Bo Bichette. I mean, listen, you can't say enough good things about this guy on the offensive side of the ball, but when we're losing games based off throwing errors from our shortstop, that's so tough, man. It is so tough to even fathom that. And the sad part is, Jesse, we kind of knew that an event like this was bound to happen with Bo Bichette's game. We've seen it happen, just not at such, high pressure in the clutch moments. It's a really tough one. I'm sure Bo's kicking himself in the butt for it, but hey, we lost both of them. And the first one, was whatever, we lost by 4 runs, but this one, it almost felt it was worse. It was worse.
Yeah.
I know it was a 1-run game, but it was worse.
And that's exactly it too. It's the fact that this happened in the clutch. Now, we had been talking about, hey, how Bo Bichette's defense has actually looked kind of better, but the big thing that's caused all the errors for Bo Bichette has been his arm. Now, it had been a while since he had made a throwing error, but that, I guess, what leads you to believe that, yeah, it was due. And that the fact that it happened at this time when Tim Meza did his job, got the ground ball, got the double play ball they needed, and Bo Bichette just threw it away. That's what stings. I'm having flashbacks to the Marcus Semien error in 2021, where it was a 2-out in the ninth. It was a routine ground ball to second. He literally just missed the throw to Vladdy, and the Jays end up losing that game and ultimately missing the playoffs by 1 run or by 1 game. So if this happens this season, we're going to look back to this Bo Bichette throwing error and really have some bad flashbacks. And honestly, like, I've dug up the metrics because that's what I do. But if you look at some of this stuff, Bo Bichette's arm strength has actually fallen significantly, quite a bit. In 2021, his average throw is about 85.8 miles per hour. It's down about 3.5 miles per hour, down to 82.3 this year. So maybe that's just Bo Bichette taking some velocity off to make sure it's more accurate. Or maybe it's just he's not a shortstop anymore. Maybe the conversation for us to move him to second base is one worth having. Now, we've had this conversation in the offseason. We've had it before. I don't think it's going to happen, but like, you could really improve this Blue Jays team by getting a significantly better shortstop, especially defensively, and having Bo Bichette play second base full time.
It's tough, though. I love a good defensive specialist type of middle infielder. Those days are gone, though. Like, I mean, everyone is hitting now in the lineup, especially with the integrated universal DH. Like, everyone hits now, man. There's like the days of me thinking like, hey, it's a good year when the catcher hits 215 with 8 home runs. Like, those days are done. Like, everyone is hitting in every lineup, and that's what Bo Bichette does, is he hits, and he just hasn't. I know that he's got his thing with, his ego or whatever you want to call it. And that's all fine. He's got the swagger and he loves to be the major league shortstop. But I mean, the discussion of team play has to be in there. Like, where if you want to be a Blue Jay, you wanted to be drafted by the Blue Jays, you got drafted by the Blue Jays, you got brought up with your boys, you're playing with the big club. I mean, you got to budge a little bit. And if playing second base is going to help us win more ball games, then, hey, man, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. Yes, shortstop is the cool guy position and whatever. Bo is the cool guy. But if we're looking to win ball games here, then a tough conversation might have to take place with, I don't know, Schneider and Bo, maybe throw Bo's agent in there, whoever else wants to get in on the conversation, because I think that there's might be a consensus going around from what is probably the best move for the team. Baseball, there's 9 guys on the field. It's not a one guy thing. Look, I want Bo Bichette to be happy because I hope he stays, I hope he stays his term out here and, is a 15-year Blue Jay. That would be amazing. But will it be at shortstop or will it be at an alternative position? It's yet to be decided, man. But whatever's going to help us win the most games is the right decision.
Yeah, I agree with you. The good news is the bat is still extreme. 3 more hard hit balls in game 3, even though he went 1 for 4. He is hitting the ball harder than he ever has in his career. So I guess you will live with the poor defense as long as Bo Bichette is still mashing with the stick. But Riley, I wanted to move on to maybe another talking point. You brought up stuff about doing what it takes to win the most ball games. And we have to talk about our manager, John Schneider, and some of the interesting decisions he made in this game. Now, George Springer's been out of the lineup because he's been sick, and all reports say it's been quite a serious viral infection. Like, some of his teammates even said, like, I can't believe he's even gotten into games at all. And honestly, just from watching George Springer when he's in there, he does look sick. Like, he physically does not look well. Apparently, this went around for Danny Jansen. Yusei Kikuchi had this a little bit as well. So it's going around the clubhouse. But if you've decided that George Springer is going to be good enough to pinch hit, you at least need to use him in the best situations. Like in game 1, there were 2 men on, and it was against a righty at the time, but they let Santiago Espinal hit against the righty. First of all, not even bringing in Kevin Biggio, who's supposed to be a lefty, to hit against righties in this platoon situation. You leave him on the bench, which makes you think, okay, Springer isn't ready to go. 2 batters later, Philadelphia brings in Gregory Soto, the lefty. Dalton Varsho comes up. Then they decide to pinch hit for him and put George Springer in, and he went 3 strikes, 3 pitches, struck out, didn't even look competitive at all. Like, you want to leave Varsho in there. And there were a few more times too. I think you said Danny Jansen came in at an interesting spot. And even in game 2 in today, in extra innings with the ghost runner or the zombie runner on second base, Kevin Kiermaier's up, who's been hitting over 300 against right-handed pitching this year. They decide to bring in Alejandro Kirk, who's hitting 242 against right-handed pitching this year. And big surprise, as Alejandro Kirk's done all road trip, he hit a ground ball to the left side of the infield. So if we want to talk about doing what it takes to make sure we win the most ball games, or that our manager is doing his parts, like, are you worried about the decisions that John Schneider is making here?
So these kind of moves reminded me of kind of like a house league ball move a little bit, like the sharing the field kind of idea where you're just kind of subbing in guys willy-nilly. We don't need that in Major League Baseball. We need statistics to back up our decisions, and those decisions were not backed up. The one I have the biggest gripe with was when Dalton Varsho was pinch hit for. And I know that Varsho's a lefty bat, and I know that, yes, he sometimes can look sick against left-handed pitching, but I can't, it's just for me and the way I was brought up around baseball, like, he's hitting in the 3 spot. You simply do not, unless he's injured, you simply just do not pinch hit willy-nilly for your 3 spot hitter. That's your guy. That's the guy that's supposed to be driving in runs for you, the 3 and the 4 spot. It's just a decision you don't need to make. You're over managing the game at that point. And then Springer, like you said, he looked he looked not good. I mean, the 3 strikes and then sit down, like, he made an absolutely awful swing on an off-speed attempt, and basically stuck his butt in the air and the bat flailing out. John Schneider kind of overmanaged that situation, maybe to try and get the matchup, but it just didn't make sense to me. And then the other one too, Kirk getting Kirk stepping in, pinch hitting for Kiermaier. Yeah, that one is not that's not even the matchup move you need to make. Like, I mean, we're talking what I was talking about with Varsho facing a lefty. Like, that makes a little more sense, I guess, if it's not Dalton Varsho. But this one with Kiermaier, who had been having a great series up to that point as well,
Yeah,
and Kirk,
really
who
had
had just been hitting ground balls. Kirk had just been hitting ground balls, and what does he do? Ground out to third. And I think we decided that was the 4th time in the series he hit a weak ground ball in first pitch, you said too. And I think that's the first pitch grounder to third he had in the series, which that's not a competitive at bat. I mean, you're just giving him an out essentially. You're just getting too hungry up there. And for a guy who's hitting 242 against right-handed pitching or whatever his line is for the season, I mean, and Kiermaier has looked great. It's another kind of over managing move,
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
opinion. This one almost worse in a way because you're mixing your matchups completely wrong. I know Kirk does hit righties very well, but at this point in the year, Kiermaier also has been mashing.
Yeah, and you go to the Dalton Varsho one. Dalton Varsho is hitting 260 against lefties this year, so it's not like it's nothing. And you could have given him a chance. I don't know. I am a little concerned about John Schneider with his managing. Even going back to the last series in Fenway Park when the Blue Jays struggled, there were times I think he left his starting pitchers in too long. Jose Barrios was one, for example, and even just some of the bullpen decisions he's made have been kind of interesting to me. But let's talk about one of those starting pitchers, Riley. And we got to talk about Alek Manoah, Riley. And I don't know about you, but I'm genuinely getting concerned now about Alek Manoah. Usually when I see one of these pitchers who just kind of struggles out of nowhere, usually I can look through the data and we can try to figure out exactly what it is that's going wrong here. And there's a lot that's going wrong with Alek Manoah. His slider, or sorry, he threw all these pitches. He only got 3 whiffs, 7%, which league average is roughly around 25 to 30%. He was down to 7. And his numbers on the season as a whole, Riley, 41 innings pitched. He does have a 4.83 ERA, a 1.66 whip, 13.1 walk percentage, 16.8 strikeout percentage, 20% whiff percentage, 8% swinging strike percentage. His expected stats, Riley, even worse. 6.35 expected ERA. The FIP's in the high fives, the XFIP's in the high five, the SIERA's in the high fives. You see it. He has the worst SIERA and XFIP out of all qualified starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. And the big thing, I know they noted it on the broadcast, we're going to note it here too, is Alek Manoah has just simply lost the slider. Now, I don't know how it happens, right? It went from being one of the best pitches in baseball. We talked about all offseason with how good Alek Manoah's slider was. It had a -6 run value. It was tied with Justin Verlander's slider, who's really good. This year, it is a +11 run value, and this is a stat where you want to have the lowest number possible. It is literally the worst pitch in baseball by any qualified starting pitcher this year. And simply the horizontal movement is gone. The location is gone. Like, I just do not simply understand how a guy can simply just lose a pitch like that, especially one Alek Manoah had coming through the minors. He had it in college, for goodness sake. He had it for 2 full years in the major leagues. Riley, I just don't understand how it's physically possible you can just lose a pitch unless you're hurt. Like, I think that's got to be it. If there's a mechanical issue or he's like physically just can't throw the pitch anymore, that is the only thing I can understand of how Alek Manoah would just lose a pitch like that.
It reminds me of Uno when you play that card that has the reverse.
Yeah.
Easily had gone to, like you said, it's a first to worst kind of deal. And it sucks because it's one of our guys. And it sucks even worse because it's Alek Manoah. And the problem is we've seen Alek Manoah pitch really, really well. And now we're sitting in this 2023 season and we're watching Alek Manoah. And we're watching him not just struggle, but I would say mightily struggle.
Mhm.
And I would like to say at times it seems like he has control over ball games, but a lot of the time, man, there are runners on base, there are runs on the board early. These are games that Alek Manoah just simply does not have the control in, and literally and figuratively, because you said his strikeout percentage to his walk percentage, and I heard 2 very, very close numbers. I don't know exactly what they are. What you said, they were a couple percentages off. He has just simply walked too many batters.
Yep.
Which is a control issue.
Yep.
And then you get into how hard he's been hit this year. And that may be a location issue. That could be a movement issue if you want to talk about his slider and the non-movement it has. I mean, it's not his longevity. I mean, yes, he has struggled. I mean, he's thrown 100 pitches in like 3 out of the last 4 starts. I mean, that's something. I mean, that's not good. They weren't great pitches, but we can take it away as a good thing. Like, his arm's not falling off after, 400 pitches in 4 starts. But at the same time, too, like, you worry about Alek Manoah because the line on the season, he's just under a 5 earned run average, a 1.6 walker hits per 9. Like, those aren't good numbers. And with the fielding independent pitching in the 5s, Like those
Yeah.
are just
Yeah.
disgusting numbers. And it's almost unbelievable that he could go from, you know, where he was last year and really fall off. And I don't know if it's a physical, I don't know if it's a mechanical, I don't know if it's a mental thing with the slider, but yes, it's almost like I forgot he at this point, Jesse, because yes, I'm was never a pitcher, so pitches, you know, are kind of whatever for me. But if he doesn't pick it up, we will forget that that slider ever existed. And then
Yeah.
from there, like,
Yeah.
are you going to develop into a sinker baller? You got to develop a good secondary repertoire of pitches. And he's just simply leaving too much stuff that's easy to hit over the heart of the plate, or he's making non-competitive pitches. And he did that a lot in his start in that 8-4 game. He made a lot of uncompetitive pitches when he needed to throw a strike.
Like you just go from walking 6.5% of your batters in 2023 up over 13% 1 year later. Like Riley, remember last year we watched Yusei Kikuchi pitch and he was dog awful and he was walking everybody. Alek Manoah is walking more than what Yusei Kikuchi did last year. And that is just absolutely not like unheard of. Now, sometimes this does happen with pitchers. Sometimes they just lose it. I remember Luis Castillo of the Cincinnati Reds just lost it for a while. Then he was able to get it back. So there is a chance, right? And if you're going to bet on anyone, you're going to bet on Alek Manoah. But I will say, man, I do not feel good about Alek Manoah right now. And we'll get to Kevin Gausman here in a second here, but I want you to rank our 5 starting pitchers. Say the Blue Jays are going into a playoff series tomorrow. Rank the starting pitchers 1 through 5 and what order you want them starting a playoff game.
So the first one is easy. I mean, it's the guy that's next on our docket, and that is Kevin Gausman.
Correct.
I can't wait for some hype to actually talk about how he pitched today because it was awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, if the playoffs started tomorrow or in September, I would hope that maybe we make a move at the deadline or Hyun-Jin Ryu makes some spectacular return to baseball. But let's go with, for the sake of making this interesting, Jesse, let's say that we go Gausman. Let's say that we keep Manoah in that 2 spot right now because it is Alek Manoah. Hey, what are our choices, man? What's the matchup?
Yeah.
Do we want Kikuchi? Is it a lefty savvy lineup who we're playing? Do we want Yusei Kikuchi? There's a lot of hypotheticals in this because I would love to say Kikuchi if it's a lefty savvy lineup. I would like to say what were Barrios' last couple starts. Maybe we go Barrios too. Okay. Do we go Bassett? I don't really think I don't have a lot of confidence in Bassett. You want my true opinion, Jesse?
I do.
Without throwing Manoah there. Yeah. I'm going Gausman. I'm going Kikuchi. I'm going Barrios.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying. And it sounds ridiculous. Wow. I could hear it in the papers for this, but that's Jesse, what we're dealing with. If we're walking into a playoff game tomorrow and we're going on our most recent performances, this is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying to you, Jesse.
I would still probably put Chris Bassett number 2, but I do not feel confident about the Blue Jays starting pitching. And the thing is too, there's nobody in Buffalo who's like strike. I guess Bowden Francis is pitching good for the Bisons right now, but do you really want Bowden Francis being a member of your rotation full time? I don't know if you do. So that's the thing with Manoah. He's going to get his starts every 5th day. He's going to get a long leash to figure this out unless he does go to the IL for an extended stint. So we'll see how it goes. But Riley, we've been too much on the negative. Let's get to the positive. We got to talk about Kevin Gausman today, and this was well needed. It sucks the Blue Jays couldn't get a win out of this one, but he was back at it again in this one. 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, no earned runs, no walks, 9 strikeouts, Riley. He's now made 8 starts this season. He's allowed 0 earned runs in 5 of his 8 starts, which is fantastic from your SP1. His fastball, Riley, was the best it's ever been. He threw a fastball as fast as 99 miles per hour to Nick Castellanos. That is the fastest pitch he threw as a Toronto Blue Jay in this start. And even his splitter was throwing a little harder as well. And we had someone on Twitter look up the numbers. Kevin Gausman was going on an extra day's rest here. And here's how his stuff performs. His fastball, for example, when he's making his regular turn in the rotation every 5th day, opponents hit about 353 against it. It's got about a 92.5 average exit velocity, or average velocity, not exit velocity. And it's about a +4 run value. When you give Kevin Gausman that extra day of rest, opponents only hit 200 against that fastball. He throws it even better, about 1.5 miles faster at 94.1 for a -4 run value. And you can even look at other stuff too, like Look at his ERA. When he gets that extra day of rest, his ERA is 0.79 compared to a normal rest 9.64 ERA. His whip 1.86 on normal rest. His whip with the extra day 0.79. Everything else looks good. The strikeouts, the walk, all that stuff looks better with extra days rest for Kevin Gausman. So maybe what I'm thinking here is maybe you give Kevin Gausman that extra day. It's tough because he's clearly our best starting pitcher, and you want him pitching all the time if he is your best starting pitcher. But if he's going to be this dominant on an extra day's rest, maybe the Blue Jays try to acquire a spot start here. Maybe we go out and get an extra arm or something just to give Kevin Gausman these extra days rest so he can perform. Do you have a thought on that at all, Riley?
Yeah, so the biggest thing here, what I'm gathering is Gausman would not have been a good pitcher in the 1920s and 30s. If
he probably still would have been, but
well, I guess ERA estimators back then would have had him at about, I think 4 was a high ERA back then in the dead ball era. Who are we kidding? But yeah, listen, I'm not opposed to Jesse. The conversation we just had not 4 minutes ago. Yeah. I am fine with acquiring a spot starter.
I think we have to.
That is totally fine by me. Now, as far as prices we got to play, that's to be determined. Whatever. Let's just pretend that we can just create a player and toss about. What are we looking for? We're just looking for a serviceable guy that is just going to give us 5 innings, and hopefully the bullpen can take care of the rest. I mean, that's what we thought Kikuchi was going to be this year. I mean, hey, there's a chance that, things can change. But I would like a pitcher of that caliber as well. Because we're thinner than people say. I've heard shows say that aren't Blue Jays related. I've heard them say that we have a deep rotation, and that's maybe just kind of looking from the outside, thinking that maybe they're still really fearing Gausman, which is a good thing. Let them think, or sorry, Manoah, my bad. Yeah. Fearing Manoah. Let them fear Alek Manoah. Gausman's stats back it up. You open the MLB page right now, you're going to see Kevin Gausman on close to the top of almost every single major leaderboard right now. And yeah, Jesse, I would really enjoy a spot starter of some sort just to take some pressure off a guy like Kevin Gausman if he's going to do something on more than his regular rest period every 6 days would be great, and have him fire off 7 shutout innings. Give him what he needs, and I'm not opposed to finding another arm anyways, Jesse.
We're going to have to. We'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully the Blue Jays don't wait too long into the season. Get it done now. The AL East is so tight. Make your move now and go ahead and do it. But some other player performances I wanted to make sure I mentioned. I thought Tim Meza has been excellent, especially coming out of the bullpen. He was good today. He's been good even against right-handed pitchers too. I wanted to throw Tim Meza some love. Jimmy Garcia had a good bounce back appearance here today as well. He got a clean in a pressure situation. I was kind of nervous seeing him come in today, but he was able to get the job done there as well. And we mentioned Alejandro Kirk with all the ground outs and whatnot. And there was another. Brandon Belt was the other one. Hit a home run today, and he's really looking like. We talked about him a lot last episode, so we don't need to talk about him much here now, but he really looks like he's cemented his spot in that lineup. He is heating up. He's been crushing everything. So good from him. Do you have a thought on those 2 relievers or Brandon Belt, Riley, just real quick?
No, it's good to see Belt kind of turn things around. Garcia needed that. I think there was a lot of people ready to start an angry mob at Garcia, and to Meza, I'm honestly not surprised. And we need our only lefty. We need him to be going and be throwing well, and he did in those 2/3 of innings pitched. He did what he had to do. And it sucks that he was saddled with that loss. I'll bring it back to that throwing error, but it sucks that he was saddled with that loss today. It's funny how those extra innings work with that ghost runner out on second base. A lot can happen, and you got to play some tight defense behind. But Mason made a great play, and it's out of his hands from there. But I do hope to see both of those guys. I want to see Garcia pitch. I know how good he can be, and I really hope he continues that as well.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm still quite confident. Even Anthony Bass, I thought too. We haven't talked about him much these last few episodes, but I think he has started to figure out something as well. So let's just maybe a little spoiler. Keep trying that to see if Anthony Bass can put it together here as well. I do have some injury updates. Speaking of that bullpen, reliever Adam Simber threw a bullpen session and, quote, felt pretty good, says John Schneider. He will get into a rehab appearance here in the coming days here. Mitch White is continuing his rehab appearance. He allowed a run on 6 hits with 7 strikeouts on Sunday. He's going to make another start probably on Friday or Saturday for the Buffalo Bisons. And we mentioned it before, but Ricky Tiedemann has been officially put on the minor league IL, and he's going to be out, quote, a matter of weeks with the biceps injury. But honestly, it could have been worse. So the fact that Ricky Tiedemann will be shut down, let's say it's about a month or so, and he comes back normal and he comes back his normal self, he could be in line to join the Blue Jays at the end of the year. But again, you've mentioned it before, you never like to see arm fatigue or arm problems with their young phenoms, especially a guy who hasn't gone through Tommy John surgery yet, because we know it might be coming, and that would be devastating for the Toronto Blue Jays. So any of those pieces of injury news catch your attention, Riley?
Yeah, of course. You want to, I'll keep it brief. You just, at all costs, there's nothing more important right now for Ricky Tiedemann than rest and relaxation and getting back to the top of his game. And yes, of course, as much as the guy wants to be on the hill pitching, the most important thing is to be able to now bounce back from this injury and not let it affect you long term. This isn't a 34-year-old trying to get back into the game of baseball. This is a young kid still very much trying to pave his way to the big leagues. So all the best in his recovery, as it is still, it's a month isn't a long time for him. I'm sure it feels like an eternity, but hoping for, a speedy recovery for Ricky Tiedemann, because a very important piece of this organization.
And the Blue Jays could absolutely use him sooner rather than later. Riley, anything else to add before we call it an episode here today?
No, like you said, Jesse, real tough series. Number 99, though. No, episode 99. Looking forward to that 100, Jesse. We almost have hit that milestone. It's been an excellent journey, my friend. And hey, not all episodes are fun. This one, very mixed feelings. Let's hope we kind of have something to look forward to for 100th episode. But hey, no guarantees there. No guarantees. I have fun doing this. But God, man, I'll just end on this. How tough is the American League East? I've been saying it since I was 10 years old. And it just, things never change, man. Holy cow.
Never do. That'll do it for episode here today, guys. Please remember to like the video on your way out, subscribe to the channel, leave us those 5-star reviews, all that fun stuff on your way out here. You can interact with Riley and I. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. We are all that stuff as well. We're passionate Blue Jays fans. We'll talk Blue Jays baseball with you. Until then, that's all I got. We'll see you on Sunday night with episode 100 and our recap against the Atlanta Braves. And I'm hopeful if the plan comes together, we're going to have something fun for that episode. So we'll see you guys then. Let's go Blue Jays.